Welcome. I am Dr. Raymond Lawrence, and I am the Director of the Master of Data Science program at UBC Okanagan. And today we have a group of panelists together of students and alumni to talk about the Okanagan experience if you do the Masters of Data Science at the Okanagan campus. Just to note that the focus on this particular web presentation is talking about the experience at the Okanagan. We'll talk about admissions at another time. So one of the key things that we want you to do is you're welcome to ask us questions online, and we will answer those throughout the hour. But we also have some prepared questions that people have already submitted, and we will ask those to the panelists, and they will give us their experiences on what it's like to be a Master of Data Science student at UBC Okanagan. So first I'd like to have the panelists introduce themselves, starting off with Christian here.
Hi, my name is Christian Haluki, and I'm currently enrolled in the MDS program and about 2 months in thus far. I have an engineering and business background. So I was, I guess I would consider myself one of the more experienced students in class. So, but I've been really enjoying it a lot so far. And one of the unique things about me in the class is I actually grew up in Kelowna. So coming back to UBC has been a real pleasant experience for me.
Yeah. Hi everyone, my name is Bindu. I'm a recent graduate of Master of Data Science from UBC Okanagan. So I was part of the first cohort in the Okanagan campus. Prior to that, I've completed my bachelor's and master's in industrial and systems engineering from IIT Kharagpur in India. And then I've worked for 1 year as an analytics consultant in insurance domain. So through my master's project and during my work experience, I've had a chance to use different analytics techniques, and that helped me develop an interest in data science. And also I felt that there's a lot more to learn in this subject, and I thought that doing a master's in data science would be a great idea. And currently, I'm working as a research analyst in planning and institutional research office right here in Kelowna in UBC.
Hi viewers, I'm Debangsh. I'm currently a Master's of Computer Science student here in UBC Okanagan. I finished my MDS program this year in June, and I joined as a research student this year in September. Prior MDS, I was working in different roles as a system engineer and software engineer in 2 different organizations, and I did my undergrad in electronics and communication engineering.
Thank you. Well, I think what you see is there's a diversity of backgrounds in the Master of Data Science, whether you have an engineering, a science, an arts, or a business background. Everyone can be successful in the Master of Data Science. I think that's really important and adds to the diversity of the group that we have. So one of the most common questions, and we're going to start off with the most important one it feels that people ask, is what made you decide on the Master of Data Science, and specifically at the Okanagan campus? So we'll start off with Christian.
Sure. So this is, to be honest, this is actually the 3rd degree that I've done at UBC. So I have 2 previous ones at UBC in Vancouver. So when I was looking at applying to the program, one of the things that did appeal to me, and this is I think something you'll hear, is that the class size here is quite a bit smaller than you would see elsewhere. And it's that intimate learning environment. So that was really appealing to me when I was looking at the MDS programs in general. Also, I'm married and I have a young family, so to me, there's a lot of positives of being in the Okanagan. We are very active in terms of recreation, so there's a lot that the Okanagan has to offer. The convenience of getting to campus is a big plus here, and it's been really interesting for me to see how much the Okanagan has changed. To be honest, I haven't lived here in over 15 years, but as I've reconnected with people that I grew up with, it's been really exciting to see the amount of opportunity that exists in the Okanagan that wasn't, here 15, 20 years ago. So we chose this program with the intention that to be working here afterwards. So the fact that there's the kind of a emerging tech industry is very appealing as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I decided to do my master's in data science, I've done a lot of research online, especially for the top data science programs in Canada. And I also have a friend in UBC who is she's doing masters in electrical and computer engineering department, and she has highly recommended that UBC is a great school to study in. And to be honest, why especially Okanagan, I didn't have much idea before I came here, but the advantages of being in a smaller cohort and in the Okanagan Valley in general, I got to know during and after completing the program. Um, the We can easily approach instructors, and the instructor to student ratio is high, so it's much more intimate learning experience here in Okanagan.
I have to agree with everyone here that the smaller cohort obviously appeal to me as well. We have done plenty of research before joining the MDS program, and UBC stood out from all other programs because not only because of the reputation, but also because I believe that in a small cohort you will learn better, and as Bindu mentioned, that instructor to student ratio is high and they are really approachable. So I thought that appealed most to me before joining the MDS program.
Good. That makes a lot of sense. That's what the program is aimed to have that very close student interaction. One thing you can't comment on is the difference in curriculum, because you're all Okanagan, not Vancouver. But what a very common question is, what's the difference between the two curriculums? And they're designed to be pretty much identical. There's minor variations in course structure and instructors, but you're really getting the same curriculum and training in data science in both of the Vancouver and the Okanagan program, with a specialty in computational linguistics offering different material.
One thing I want to mention is the difference. Pretty much the curriculum is same, but some courses in Okanagan are more focused on optimization and operations research related thing. And I had a background in industrial engineering, and I was also really interested in learning more math related courses. That also attracted me towards this campus.
So another very common question is, what are your favorite highlights of the program? So you've just started, but highlights maybe in terms of course material, instructor, cohort, about the MDS. What stands out to you so far for you? And then let's start on Debangsh's side this time. What stands out from your experience?
So I think machine learning was one of the best courses we had, and I would also like to mention the statistics courses we had, the Markov model and all those hidden Markov models, all those courses. These appeal to me more because I'm interested in artificial intelligence, and so those were the best courses I had in MDS.
Good.
For me, the highlight is how the program is brilliantly structured. As we all know, it's only 10 months, and around 8 months is for the courses, and there are a lot of courses covered with a lot of depth that you wouldn't expect in such a short duration. And the course material was also a highlight, along with the instructors, especially statistics courses. We had amazing instructors with in-depth knowledge of the subject.
Yeah, so recognizing I'm not 2 months in, I guess my immediate reaction in terms of a highlight was the class is very diverse, which is fantastic. Mm-hmm. And I think when you combine the diverse nature with that small size, is that it's one thing to have a diverse class, but it's another thing that you've got all the interactions. So within a couple of weeks, I felt like I knew everybody in the class, and not only did I know them, we were interacting. So that was a real pleasant surprise. Maybe in hindsight, it's not a surprise, but it's again one of those benefits of the small class. And then the other thing I would say when I look out and I started to network locally and meet people in industry is that, and I know this is a professional-based master's, so it's the intention is there to get you a job afterwards, but everything that I'm learning, then I go and meet with somebody who's working in data science, and it's those same concepts. Granted, we're at the building block stage, but all these things that I'm learning, I can immediately go and talk to somebody and they can tell me about, well, now here's how I'm applying that in my job. So that was an expectation, but it's always nice to affirm that.
That's great. That's great. Okay, another very common question is, what were the most challenging aspects? So the most challenging aspects, we'll start with Bindu this time. What were the most challenging aspects in terms of courses, in terms of customizing to Canada in the program, anything?
For me, the most challenging aspect was time management, because it is the course structure is we have 4 courses at a time, and the blocks we have 6 blocks in total. So if focusing on one course and one assignment or one exam at a time really helped me, because if we think about all of them at once, it seems intense, but if we think about focus on one thing at a time, it's really easy. So that's one major thing that I have learned throughout this program, the planning and management.
I'd say of course the most challenging aspect of MDS program is you have to complete 24 credits in 10 months, and it sounds tough, but it's doable, and we have done it, and many students have done that. So it's of course manageable. The key is you have to be focused on the courses and do the assignments on time and prepare for the quizzes on time to get the most out of the program. Yep.
So for me, in terms of the most challenging aspect, I would say that I hadn't been in a school environment in almost 10 years. So getting my head back into that learning mode again was something I knew that I had to be proactive about. So it hasn't been as challenging as it could have been, because what I actually did is, once I found out that I was accepted into the program, I came to campus one day and actually introduced myself to Raymond, and they said, okay, I've got some time here. What would you recommend focusing on? When you hear about students that are maybe not where they want to be to start the program or anything like that. So I guess the bottom line is it hasn't been maybe as challenging as it could have been, and that's something that I would recommend to anybody, especially if you've been out of school for a long time, is being proactive. There's so many great materials nowadays. Yes, I guess challenging in terms of going back to school, but not as bad as it could have been.
So it's intense, but it's doable.
Doable, absolutely.
That's the whole objective, intense, but it's doable. So we have a question that's just come in, and just on this challenging theme again. So how challenging it would be to move to one of the campuses in BC for the length of the program? So this kind of feels like maybe this person might have been in Vancouver and they're moving to Kelowna, or the other way is possible too, Kelowna and moving to Vancouver just for the length of the program. Probably talking about things like living costs, tuition, transportation. Any comments on, well, you were both international students, so you moved here completely, but how about Christian? What's your perspective on that?
Well, again, I would kind of credit it to, while Kelowna, I think the Kelowna area is maybe 200,000 people. That may be considered small by some measures, but it's still kind of that critical mass that that's big enough. So when we have a vehicle, but out of need for driving my kids around. But a lot of the classmates, you don't need a car here. There is good public transit. You get a bus pass. So that some of those other things that you maybe would associate that would be needs in a community this side, you don't need. And I think if you live on campus, that provides a great opportunity where your walk is close. Everything's kind of set up for you. But when I talk to, again, I'll just kind of balance what I've heard from my classmates. I haven't heard a lot of struggle in terms of setting up a place to live. And I guess the other thing I should say is there are resources throughout the program as well. There's a woman who was extremely helpful with, I know, a lot of my classmates in terms of helping them make that transition.
That would be Crystal, who's the administrative assistant to that and does a fabulous job. And last year and this year as well, we've made the MDS a priority if you want to live on campus. And I think last year the cohort had such a good group on campus, you were less than 500-meter walk to the class from your front door.
Right.
How did that work out for you when you were here?
Yeah, I lived on campus when I was studying, and it was really convenient. Most of my roommates were also in the MDS cohort, and we got to like interact and study together. And also the other people who were living all off campus would come into our place during the breaks, and it was a good environment for us to interact.
Like Christian mentioned, moving here from a different city is a super smooth transition because the transport is really good. I lived off campus. I didn't have any problem finding a place. Everyone is super nice here. And it's really easy to find a place here at a reasonable price. And if you want to move here just for the duration of the course, that's a very fantastic idea because you can sign a lease for 1 year and then just move back to your city. It's not a problem at all.
Yeah, some of my colleagues also, they have moved to Kelowna recently from Armstrong and Abbotsford and different places in BC, and they really liked Kelowna, and they also said the transition was smooth.
I do know from last cohort there were several people who lived in Vancouver and came here for school, and some of them even commuted back and forth.
Yeah.
Not that we would recommend that for that distance, but it's definitely possible in order to do it. Well, let's change pace a little bit. Another of the questions that came in was how heavily is programming involved in the MDS program? How much programming do you have to do?
So it's my personal experience, I'd say, that in the first semester, in the fall, in the first 3 blocks, there is more coding in Python, and in the second semester, that starts from January, there is more coding in R because you go into all the machine learning things and you have to code in R. Coding is a very important part of this program, so get ready to prepare yourself to start coding as much as you can, but simultaneously you have to learn all the concepts of data science as well. So I'd say it's a very important aspect of MDS program that you have to code a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with Deb, and we have labs every day, like 4 labs a week, and most of 90% of the labs involve coding, mostly in Python and R. We would at least spend few hours coding every day for each lab, and the learning concepts and coding both go simultaneously throughout the program. Yeah.
And I would say too that a consistent message from all the professors is just the importance, if you want to learn this, practice. So in addition to having all of the labs, in Raymond's class and a couple of the other classes too, there's actually physical breaks during the class to be like, okay, you've learned this, now try it. So getting that feedback as that immediate testing, like, okay, you've taught us something, now let's see you do it, and being able to go around the class. So that's a consistent message, and it's one thing that I've found, again, I didn't really have much experience coding before I started this, is that immersing myself in it and coding and practicing as much as possible is just a great way to learn.
Data science, you have to be able to do it. And so programming is one of those skills you have to be able to do if you want to get a position. And so that's what the program's all about. So we're getting quite a few questions on admissions. So just a reminder that we're not going to answer admissions questions specifically here. The admissions are open. You have to apply to either the Okanagan or Vancouver campus, but there will be other opportunities to talk about, and we'll answer questions related to admissions at another time. Another common question we got is, how are placements after graduating? What roles have past students got to? So we've got 2 past students, but diverse. And if you could talk about your journey, where you're at, and maybe other people in the cohort too that you know about, that would be great.
During the placement aspect is, I'd say there are 3 options. You can either work for an employer who has plenty of data and they are eager to hire data scientists, for example, banks and all the financial firms, or you can create your own position to a smaller firm that has a lot of data, but they don't have a data science position yet. That's what I have done. I recently worked for a small local company called TVON, and they had a plenty of data, and I talked to them about creating a position as an AI engineer, and they agreed to it. So and the third option is you can work as a freelancer, and I know some of our cohort, some of the alumni from our cohort are doing that. They have started their own consulting companies, and they are taking clients for the data science solutions. So that's also a viable option, and MDS prepares you for that as well.
Yeah. I think placements is more based on, depends on the individual, and there are a lot of factors to consider. I would recommend starting applying during the or before the block before Capstone, and there are a lot of things to consider, like where do you want to apply, and also the technical aspect, and also the domain. By domain, I mean I have worked in the insurance domain before joining the program, and there are other domains like healthcare, banking, etc. And so the domain aspect depends also on where you were before the program as well. And the technical aspect, I mean the different various fields in related to data science, like data engineering, data science, statistician related roles, and research based roles. So I think throughout the program it gives you the wide range of courses. It gives you an opportunity to know yourself, like to understand what you are interested more in, and then decide throughout the program, keep it in your mind what you want to pursue later, and apply based on that.
I know you don't have a job yet, but what was your vision on what you would want to go with this training eventually?
To be honest, so in my previous career, I was in a very kind of specific technical, and then eventually moved into the business side of a bit, very kind of specific program. So especially knowing that I wanted to live in the Okanagan when I was done the program, the appeal to me when I told people I was doing this program, they're like, well, what do you want to do when you're done? And I'm like, well, the beauty of it is I don't have to decide right now. And even as I go through the program, you know, that like everything there's data everywhere. So even when I envision, you know, I'm starting to get to the stage where I'm starting to think about like what specifically would I be interested in. But the appealing thing to me is that whatever I choose, I know I'm not pigeoning myself in one, like, so if you decide to work data science and healthcare, it's not like 3 years from then you want to do something different. It's hard to transition over. Like you're getting a skill that is applicable to so many different industries. Right. So yeah, I'm not at that stage yet, but to me the appeal is kind of the breadth of opportunity that exists after finishing the program.
The degree is definitely training you to be a generalist data science, so you could apply to any industry. You may even decide to go on to research, which was where you're at, work for a nonprofit, work for health. I think it gives you openings wherever what you want to do. Related to that, there's been some questions about Vancouver. Obviously, big city, tech hub, there's lots of opportunities there. Okanagan is a growing tech place. There's a lot of companies, a lot of startups, a lot of growing companies that you could work with, and plus a lot of industry that you wouldn't associate with tech who also need data science. But the question is, how many people stay here? And it's hard to answer because really we're not even 6 months out from when your cohort graduated. But based on my LinkedIn connections with most of them, I'd say about 25 to 30% are in the Okanagan region right now. With quite a few went to Vancouver and got jobs, often because several of them were originally from the Vancouver area, but also Toronto, Montreal, all across Canada, and other countries around the world. So I like to believe that the degree gives you the opportunity, if you build to the skills, to compete anywhere. That's the idea. You might decide you love the Okanagan and it's a beautiful place to be, but you might decide to go somewhere else too after you're done.
And the one thing I would say is, you know, even with just 1 year in, how supportive the alumni have been in terms of, you know, I've just randomly reached out to people on Slack and said, can I buy you a coffee? Can I hear about what your experience is like working in the Okanagan? So it's one thing to have that alumni presence, but it's another thing to have such a supportive alumni as well. So that's been really
That's great. And it's a great segue to the next question, which was how supportive were the instructors and fellow students when learning the material and going through the program in general?
Well, I've just got a recent experience here, which speak to it. So we actually had a well-deserved, somebody called it a well-deserved break. Yep. So we had 5 days off, but we did have some assignments that were due last Friday. So it was Thursday, and it was about 5 p.m. So a lot of people were trying to get the work done, and one of the professors came over and just unprompted by students said, "How are things going?" He knew that a lot of people were working on it, and he stayed with us for an hour and a half. So this is outside of his time, but just the engagement with the students is just really pleasant to see. And again, the proximity, the fact that it's not like he had to walk 15 minutes across campus to come and help us. But and there's been multiple examples like that. But just I'd say the instructors are very generous with their time.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with Christian. While we were students in MDS program, we had the same experience. Instructors are always available, and they go out of their way to make your life easier, to do a good job in MDS program. So it's really nice.
Yeah, I would agree to both of them. Instructors were always really supportive and helpful, be it any questions related to courses, assignment, exam, or even if you have something outside of the course you want to work on an extra project or something. They were really approachable all throughout the program, all the instructors and also the fellow students. We would always study together and solve assignments together, and we are all from different backgrounds, as we mentioned before. So every person has different strengths, and we learned from each other throughout the program.
Yeah, I think cohort means team.
Yeah.
You have a team of people learning. You're not just by yourself. Mm-hmm. And I also want to emphasize you're not competing with each other either. Yeah. You're all trying to be successful in the program, and that's really important. What is the intensity of the program? Is it manageable? And related to this, people normally ask, would you be able to work part-time while you're doing this program?
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
So the program is intense because we have to cover a lot of things in 10 months, but it is certainly manageable because we all have successfully completed it. And coming to the part-time, I did not work part-time during my program. And I would not recommend working part-time because the time we have, it's sufficient to solve all the assignments and finish our coursework. But if you have some extra time, you can delve deeper into the topics and subjects you are more interested in on your own, and also take some time to relax. But if you have to work, then you have to work, and it's not impossible because some of the people in our cohort have worked part-time while we were doing the program.
I would add to that, if after you have joined the courses, you have gone through 1 or 2 blocks, you will get the vibe of where you are, and you have the idea of how are you able to manage the assignments, the labs. And I guess if you have a background in coding before, since it's one of the most important part of the program, if you feel confident, you can manage a part-time as well. But like Bindu mentioned, it's not recommended that you work, but sometimes you have to. So it's absolutely manageable, and we know people who have done it before.
Yeah, I mean, you can start working part-time in the beginning of the program if you have a good foundation before joining, because especially the first block, it's kind of a foundation and introductory courses, and then after 2 or 3 blocks you can decide on whether you can continue or not.
So in terms of I guess I'll take a step back. In terms of time management. So I worked for a long time, so that was the one strength I had. So while I was really removed from school, the advantage I had is that I was used to working 40, 50-hour weeks for a long time. So for me, people kept asking me, how's it going to be going back to school? I just said, I'm going to treat it like a job.
Yeah.
So I am one of the people that I'm here before class starts every day, studying for about 2 hours, because my time is not my own when I go home. I've got kids, so I just 8 to 5 is my time to get work done. So I've found that actually not to be an issue, just having that discipline to be able to really focus. And one of the things that a lot of the professors do is they make material available beforehand. So
Right.
I realize that if I've seen something before and then I've seen it for a second time and somebody's explaining it, that's really efficient. So it's trying to make the lectures as effective as humanly possible for me. So I would say that it's manageable. It's like a job.
Which let's follow up on that. You talked about what your day looks like. Do you remember what your typical day looks like, either of you, when you went through the MDS program? Like, when did you start? When did you end? If someone wanted to, what the feel of it is, what was it like for you?
Yeah, so the class starts at 9:30. So it's like Christian mentioned, it's better if you reach early, and sometimes instructors post the courses materials beforehand, and you can go through them, and it makes it easier to follow the classes. And we would go through 2 classes back to back, then there is a 1 hour break, and then you have to get back to the labs. Sometimes the labs were easier and you can get it done. So the goal is to finish it as fast as possible and go home. And so that was good. And one of the best things about MDS program is you have a 3-day weekend. Mm-hmm. So you have Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So Thursdays were like you have to get it done with the lab right now so that you can go home. Yeah, so it was fun.
Yeah, so 9:30 to 12:30 is the standard class time, and then 1:30 to 3:30 is the lab time, Monday to Thursday. No classes on Friday,
right.
Saturday and Sunday's off. So that's what it looks like. Mm-hmm. Let's shift gears a little bit. So we know it's a fast-paced, accelerated program. That's a question here. What is fun to do in the Okanagan? Maybe things that you did that were new that you only did in the Okanagan, and maybe after we'll have Christian talk about who's been around the Okanagan a little bit. What was some new thing that you did when you first came here, or experience you remember?
It was really exciting for us because we are international students, and there are a lot of things to do in the Okanagan, in and around Kelowna. Like we used to go for hiking a lot. Within 1 hour distance, there are a lot of places and beautiful places to hike. And also, if you love mountain biking, you can do that too. And there are wineries, and in winters you can go skiing. There's Big Bite nearby. Which is less expensive than other places to ski, and there's ice skating, and in general the mountains and the lake and the whole Okanagan Valley is really beautiful.
I guess the best thing about Okanagan is you have a beach and a mountain in reachable distances, so you have different activities in summer and winter as well. So there is a lot of things, like Vindu mentioned. There is a hiking, biking, then all the water sports, and in winter you have skiing and all other kind of stuffs happening on Big White and other places. So it's take a break from the long courses, and you can enjoy your time here as well, and that's highly recommended.
Yeah, so there is a lot of outdoor activities
Absolutely.
to do, for sure. I remember one of the ones, like the MDS students have a Facebook page which they posted on, and didn't your group do like a corn maze, or did something that you went out?
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is sort of a unique sort of Canadian thing to do.
Like that, yeah.
So and it was really nice where you did social events together as a group, not sanctioned by the MDS program, but as a group of students doing it. So that was fantastic.
Yeah, and we had a 3-day weekend, so I would plan it like at least one day to relax. It would not always work out like that, but yeah.
Any comments, Christian, about the Okanagan?
I guess just part of the reason we wanted to move back to the Okanagan was that it's one of the areas where in Canada where you get 4 seasons. So it's really that seasonality. So whether it's this spring, like I think hiking is arguably best in the fall when the leaves are changing colors. We ski in the winter, in the summer we're on the lake all the time. So there's a huge recreation component. And then again, speaking to a change from when I was growing up here is like going out for dinner, like going out for a nice meal, and that's one of the biggest changes I'd say from when I was a kid. Is there's a lot of good restaurants in Kelowna, whether they're at the wineries or downtown. So some of that, and then there's other components of what I would call the kind of cultural component of Kelowna has grown, and I think that a lot of that's actually tied to having the university here too. I think that's really been a positive on the city itself.
And summer's an absolutely beautiful time, but the program runs from September to June. So I think even a few of your cohorts stayed an extra month in July just to enjoy the summer tour season that we have here. Changing pace a little bit, and this might be hard to answer, but opinions on what the average salary for graduates are?
Yeah, so in Okanagan, we have, I think the average salary is in the range of 65 to 75. But if it's an in general question in all over Canada, then it goes as high as up to 100,000 a year. So I guess that's the limit, for the joining junior data scientists.
Yeah, it also majorly depends on how much experience we had before. And
I think that's a good point. Your starting salary also depends on what you came into the program with, then the connections and where you're at. And a 75,000 to 80,000 in Kelowna gets you a different sort of lifestyle than that gets you in Vancouver or Toronto or a major U.S. center. So it's always highly specific to your company, your background, your role. But there is a lot of great opportunities here and around the world to compete for those jobs.
And I think, again, from what I've heard is coming back to the company size, if you're at a smaller company, maybe your salary isn't as high as you might get elsewhere, but that's when things like having equity in the company. So there's other sources of potential income.
Owning stocks and all those things.
Yeah.
Well, now I want you to think back to when you went to apply for the program and then when you first started. So a question is, did you feel that your background was suitable? And what would you have done ahead of time to prepare for the program? Or maybe you did, or you wish that you did ahead of time.
So I'd say a programming background definitely helps. And if somebody's not coming from a programming background, he or she can at least meet the prerequisites of the program and learn the prerequisites in the statistics and mathematics, whatever is mentioned on the admission website. I think that way you can have a certain, you will prepare for what's coming into the MDS program. So I think, and like I mentioned, a programming background helps, but it's not an absolute necessity because we have seen students who didn't come from programming background or computer science background at all, but they did really, really well in the MDS program.
Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to say. I had some programming background. I was working in R previously before I joined. But I have seen people from diverse backgrounds like psychology, biology, etc., which are not quantitative, but still the program in the first few blocks offers a foundation. But if you want to prepare, then you can prepare basics in statistics, Python, and R. That would be really helpful. And also you can learn from the fellow students in the program, and also the instructors are also really supportive.
Yeah, and when I think back when, at the beginning of the program, there was a kind of a poll, like who has a stats background, who has a computer science background, and I was one of the people that put my hand up for neither, which for, a moment I was like, a little bit intimidating, but then kind of what gave me confidence and what I came back to is so I had taken some coding courses over the summer, but even when I went into coding, I was one of your stereotypical engineers that didn't code, but I had Excel open all the time. So while I didn't know how to code, I know how to structured problem solving. So I think that as long as you have insights on how to solve problems, and you can that having that figured out, the coding will come much easier. So I've already seen where, especially in the first two blocks, I think my lack of coding experience meant I had to focus on it more. But now that I'm getting more confident in it, the fact that I have the experience of having to solve a lot of problems over the years, just the way I can kind of use analogies for things I would have done. And now I see the benefit of coding so much, which is why I wanted to go to the program, because it's so much more efficient than I used to do it. But it's still thinking about how do I want to solve this.
Yes, I guess the point is that the reasonable thinking, the critical thinking is the necessity, but you don't have to have a coding background.
And I think the programming feels intense right at the start, especially if you don't have a lot of background, but it gets easier in the sense that you're going to start doing more things than just programming. You're going to start solving data science problems, and then programming is not the major focus. It's a tool to help you solve those particular problems. Okay, so any tips and strategies if someone's in the program to excel in the program? Tips, strategies that work for you that you can think of?
I would just say be consistent in your hard work throughout the program. Like even if for 1 week you don't do your assignments, then they'll keep piling up. So you have to be consistent right from the start till the end of the program.
Don't get behind is the message. Don't get behind.
Not getting behind and learning with everyone else. Because like you mentioned, it's not a competition, we are learning together. So learn with everyone else, build study groups that you are good friends with, and learn together. And that's the way to excel in MDS, because everybody has a diverse background and everyone is good at something, and together you can succeed. I think that's the key.
And I would say too, don't lose sight of what the end goal is.
Yeah.
And the example I would give is I've kind of told some of my classmates, like if you're doing the labs and you really understand the labs, and let's say there's an exam that you have where you get flustered for a moment and you can't get one question and you don't get the mark that you want, so you take a step back. Do you feel like you have confidence in the material, and especially kind of the more the do, and I'm not saying testing isn't important, but you're coming out of here with, you want the ability to code and to solve these problems. So that's, and I think because I've been on the other end of that, where I was too focused on just getting grades and not necessarily sure everybody wants to get good grades, but I really just want to fundamentally learn the material.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah. As it is an intensive program, sometimes our priorities might be finishing this assignment might be a priority, but we should always remember that learning is more important than just finishing something.
And to Christian's point, I guess when you are sitting for interviews in different companies, I think the employers look for the knowledge than your grades more, because unless you can solve a problem, and they're going to fire questions one after another, and you have to be able to solve them. So that's more important. Learning is more important than scoring very high. So that should be the goal in MDS program, that you should learn data science.
I think that's an interesting point, because employers, the UBC degree will get you in the door in the sense that it's an accreditation, it's showing that you have a set of skills. But in this field, it really is, what can you do?
Absolutely.
So it's not necessarily the marks. They're not going to ask for your transcript. They are basically going to say, do this, or demonstrate that you can solve these problems. And that's what we want to do. And so we evaluate throughout the program with quizzes. Some of them are on computer timed to give you a realistic experience of this is what employers will be looking for. But we want you to succeed. That's the key thing. We want you to have that experience that I do have these skills and I have confidence, and the mark is not the end product. It's the capabilities and the skills.
Yeah,
that's
none
the
of
end
the
product.
companies actually ask for the transcript.
Yeah, and it's interesting, but that is really the field. It's the accreditation, the degree shows you that you've done the training, but it's what you take out of it, and we want you to be successful in what you've done as part of that degree. Now, I have a question about the capstone, and the capstone is a major component. So it's 2 months part of the program where you work with an industry sponsor for groups of 4. What was your individual experiences on the capstone? Maybe describe what your project was, and then tell a little bit about it so people have an idea on what that looks like.
Yeah, my capstone was with the UBC, Planning and Institutional Research Team of UBC, and we had to analyze the survey responses that they conduct. We got a great opportunity to explore fields of natural language processing and text analytics, which were not covered in depth during the coursework. So we had got a lot to learn during the capstone, and I had amazing partners, amazing teammates during capstone, and our capstone partner was also really helpful. And capstone also gives us an opportunity to deal the problem using real world data sets from the beginning to the end. By that I mean the whole process, the data cleaning and data analysis and visualization and reporting. So that's a really great thing for a 2-month project.
Our capstone partner was Statistics Canada, and the data was about geographical data, and it was completely new to me. And I think that was one of the best things about capstone, that you get to work with a real world data set. You get to learn something new with other students as well, and the experience was amazing. I mean, the problem was very straightforward. We not only finished it in time, we delivered more than we were asked to do. We invented problem throughout the process, and the partners have been really nice. And when we pitched the new problems to them, they were really acceptable. And they even posted our efforts on their websites. So I'd say it was an amazing experience. And one of the key things is the real world dataset is not not as a simulated dataset, so you have to figure out some of the key challenges as well while cleaning the dataset and all those things. And yeah, it's a good learning experience, I think, to work with a real company and on a real dataset.
Nothing can appreciate the challenges like working with a real data set.
Yeah.
It's nothing like working with a fictional one used in a course. And good example, your partner was UBC, your partner was Statistics Canada. So there's partners from all over Canada. Yeah. We had Interior Health, we had Scotiabank, we had various companies of sizes in the Okanagan region. We even had a partner from Vancouver that came about because someone was doing a rideshare back to Vancouver and met a business owner as part of that process. So I do think it's a especially valuable part. Do you think that differentiates the program compared to doing something that would be an online program?
Absolutely. I'd say doing a capstone is one of the major things of MDS, that because ultimately it boils down to the connections, and you make relations with some great companies, and they help you progress you on your career path.
Okay. A couple more questions that come in. After you graduated, how long to get your work permit as an international student? Do you remember?
Yeah, if for applying for the work permit, we just need the program completion letter that will get on the day of graduation itself. And right now, the processing times usually keep changing, but right now it's around 3 to 4 months. But there is another process called flag polling, in which you can just wait for a day and get it. So depends.
I believe one of the cohorts, I gave them a letter and they drove right down to the border in the same day. So there is various processes, and it's important to figure out what those are. But we're definitely supportive of getting that completion letter to get you the material that you need to have to apply for a work permit.
One thing I want to mention is that we do not need the postgraduate work permit to start working. Even if the application is in the process, we can start working. Like, for example, I got my work permit just like few weeks ago, but I started working in September. Yeah.
Okay. Another question about the material. Are there exams alongside the assignments?
Absolutely.
We don't call them exams,
Quizzes.
though, right?
Yeah.
We call them quizzes, but
Yeah.
they still are, that's the evaluation part.
Right.
That's to make sure you know what you're doing. The assignments would be the
Main.
learning
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
portion of it. But not exams in the traditional sitting down for 3 hours as a final exam as an undergraduate
Yeah,
student.
and it also depends on the course, and we have the best thing is that we can constantly give feedback to the instructors if we feel like there are too many quizzes or assignments. And for one or two of the courses, we had only assignments and not quiz, and sometimes we had only one quiz, so it's also flexible. But usually we have 2 quizzes per course.
Some of them you had projects, didn't you, instead of quizzes?
And
Just to-
take-home assignments as well,
Take-home
where you get to
assignments.
work with other students.
Okay.
And I've just started I start tomorrow, I guess, but there's just talking about that alignment between what the material is, but it's John's class on data visualization, and it looks like there's assignments, but then there's presentations.
Absolutely.
Which is, again, building
Yeah.
the real world skill where it's
Absolutely.
like, okay, now present your data.
Yeah.
I think that's important. It's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
not the hard skills like programming, the
yeah.
soft skills and how you communicate with people,
Absolutely.
how you interact and you problem solve.
Yeah.
That's universal. That's really important. So a question about family, which I guess is probably mostly for Christian, specifically from an international student, but maybe in general, what it's like coping with a fast-paced program, but also managing a family.
So I would say it's been manageable for us. My wife works as well, so for us, the first thing we had to figure out when we got here was a childcare solution, which would allow me, when she was working, that I could kind of, drop the kids off or whatever it would be. But there's a lot of resources. There's even a daycare here.
There's a daycare.
Yeah. But I think if it's not a family where there's 2 working or guests going to school, I would just say that it's manageable. Just being, I think anybody with a family, inherently their time management skills increase because they realize
Time's not your own
time's
anymore.
not your own anymore. But again, I like for me, the biggest thing I would say is like in my old job, I used to go into work every now and again at 7 in the morning or 6. So like when you're busy, what's your technique? So there's going to be times when you get busy, but just having that, like anything, I guess it's the communication. So there's an expectation with my wife if I'm really busy. There's some mornings I'll just be gone really early. So overall, I think it's quite manageable. There's good resources in the Okanagan for it, and then it just really comes down to being efficient and setting reasonable communication and expectations with the family. But I still get to see my kids a lot, and that's honestly that's really important, obviously, to me. Yeah.
And I guess that it's a really personal answer to that.
Yeah.
So I think there's a couple others in your cohort that are international students, and one has brought their family to Kelowna.
Yeah.
And in your cohort, I think a couple left their family.
Yeah.
They came over, and then their family came later. So
Yeah.
it really depends on your personal situation
Totally.
and how you would make that work out. Well, we're coming rapidly to the close here. We got about 7 minutes, so if you have other questions, please let us know. There's a couple other ones I wanted to ask. As a whole, how was your MDS experience? What have you thought about it? Looking back, I know it hasn't even been 6 months for you to graduate, and you're still in the middle of it, but as a whole, was this an experience that you look back and this was a good decision for you?
Absolutely.
Things that stand out?
Especially given the fact that many students have worked before or they've came right after their graduation. Whatever background they came from, everybody enjoyed the course, learning together, and going through the intensity of the program prepares you for the challenges, the data-related challenges that you might face in your career after the MDS. I can give one example of this, that when I was here this summer, and I was working as a freelancer and giving data-related solutions. And at first I was terrified, but then I realized that if you can go through the MDS program, the intensities, you should be able to solve these problems. And after the first project, the client was really happy, and I got a few more projects just like that. And I think that's the key point of MDS. It prepares you for the real world challenges while having fun.
Yeah. Yeah, overall it was a challenging but very rewarding experience, and the course material also is really helpful after you graduate. Like when I was working a week back, I had to work on some statistical models, and then I went back and referred back to the course materials from modeling and simulation course, and that way it's also really helpful after you graduate. And also coming from India, I got a lot of international exposure as well with people from diverse cultural, educational, and work backgrounds through the program. And I made really good friends too.
Are you still connected with some of the people in your cohort?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That is an advantage of a
Yeah.
face-to-face program. It's not just the instructors, it's all the people that are doing that program with you. Because those are connections for a lifetime for many of them, and great alumni connections for future jobs and postings and things like that. So far, Christian, how's your experience been? 2 months in?
No, it's actually been great, because I get a lot of questions from people. How am I enjoying it? And I guess the comment I can give is that I've done a couple other degrees, but this is the most I've actually enjoyed the material itself. So right now I'm in that building blocks, actually going through it. But when I think about some of the engineering courses that I took, they weren't necessarily enjoyable, but they were required. And I think that's actually a testament to the program too, because it's not like the classes are laid out for you. Everybody's in the same class, but it's so well thought out. And I like the fact that things aren't taught in isolation. So there's something I learn about in John's class that I see in Raymond's class, and vice versa. So there's that integration, and when you see things kind of come back with different perspectives, it's great. Yeah. So for me, at this stage, I just say I'm really enjoying the material.
Any thoughts? You both have a position right now. Skills that you definitely learned that would be useful in your position. Things that you've been using a lot.
Yeah, for me currently in my job, I'm using statistical models and statistics and visualization that I've learned through the program a lot. And I'll be using natural language processing as well, but I've not reached that part of the project yet. Yeah.
So I'd say absolutely, because the way the courses are structured in MDS programs, they are so diverse, and it covers so many verticals of the data science that you will be prepared to tackle most of the challenges. I personally use all the machine learning techniques, all the data cleaning techniques, because the real world data sets are not as clean as a simulated one. So as part of MDS, you will learn data wrangling, and that's one of the most important things to clean up the data, so that you can use data visualization and machine learning on them. And also data visualization was one of the key part of the MDS program that one can use in their jobs, and I do it as well.
Yeah.
So we've covered a lot of topics today: what it's like to be a student, the reasons why you'd want to go to the Okanagan. We got about a minute left. Final thought from anybody on comments or thoughts and advice for students considering the MDS?
I'd say before if you're considering an MDS in UBC Okanagan, just list out all the prerequisites and write it down in details. So whatever you have learned as part of the prerequisites, it will help you write a better statement of purpose as well, and go, if it's possible, then try to learn the fundamentals of Python and R. it makes your life easier at the beginning of the program. Otherwise, it might feel intimidating at first. Yeah.
So I want to thank everyone as panelists. Your insights have been fantastic. I'm sure it's been insightful for all the students and people considering the MDS program. If you have any questions about admissions, contact us at UBC. We're happy to answer them, and hopefully you'll consider UBC MDS at the Okanagan campus. Thank you.
Thank you.